Alright, good morning, YouTube. I'm here with the Snarky Puppy tier list. Haven't been doing much musically, and I've been wanting to do this for a while, so I figured I would just make a video out of it. I've been pretty much addicted to Snarky Puppies for a couple of years, listened to all their stuff, and these are my subjective opinions. So, yeah, we're going to be going in chronological order, from The Only Constant all the way to Empire Central. And I'll have my favorite songs from each album playing in the background, except for one, which you will see shortly. So let's start out with The Only Constant. I'm going to put this one in B tier. I think the writing on this one is really, really good. Michael League, just starting out, putting out bangers, Hot and Bother is probably my favorite track off of this one, but there's really good writing. And I think a quality that I really like in Snarky Puppy, or just in all music in general, is how visceral it is, I guess. I don't know, the word doesn't really match up with the kind of connotation I'm trying to use, but there's definitely a good amount of, raw emotion in this album, I find, and the writing is really good. But yeah, it's definitely a really solid album for them to start out, but it certainly does go up from here. Next up, we got The World Is Getting Smaller. I'm going to put this one, and I guess... yeah, I'll judge this one. I'm going to put it right behind The Only Constant, just because the writing is a little bit... I'd say the writing is a little bit less creative than The Only Constant. But the songs are very, the energy's there. The solos are top-notch. I find a lot of modern, or the later Snarky Puppy albums tend to have slightly less creative solos, but the solos on this album, as well as the next album, are very, very creative. And I'd say for this one, I think Thorn's my favorite track off of this album. Again, so the writing on this one, a little bit less creative than The Only Constant, but it definitely makes up for it with how like I said, how visceral it is, I'd say. And I guess next up is Bring Us the Bright. These two albums are almost... They're really hard to distinguish in terms of, character. But I'd put The World Is Getting Smaller just a little bit ahead. I think tracks like, Intelligence's Design, Native Sons, Alma, Phobos, they're all really good. And there are a couple more a couple more tracks I'd skip off of Bring Us the Bright than The World's Getting Smaller. All these are going to round out B tier pretty much. Yeah. Next up, we got Tell Your Friends. This is an amazing album. I'm going to put it straight to the top of A tier. Absolutely love this album. The 2020 remake is it's whatever. Was it necessary? I don't know. But, yeah, you can't go wrong with this track list. Skate You, Flood, Slow Demon is a personal favorite of mine. The End of Good Man Deliver, and The Best of the World, way too long of a name, but the track itself is amazing. And this is where I think they really started coming into their own, whereas these prior albums kind of, the writing left a little bit to be desired, but this album is where they really started hitting it, and it was amazing, at least in my opinion. Next up, we have Ground Up. This is going in the top of S tier. There is no track on this album that doesn't hit, and it is, whew, yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong. You got Binky, Thing of Gold, Young Stuff, Quartermaster, Bent Nails. It's just amazing all around. So yeah, that's definitely going to be top of S tier for me. Next up, we have M. Kenny. So if you could ever go from the top of S tier, no, this is going in F tier. It's so bad. At least, okay, in my subjective opinion, it's so bad. I really don't like the style of this one. The singing comes off as obnoxious to me. I'm not trying to shit on anyone's, culture, but yeah, not a fan. Next up, I'm not even gonna play a track for this one because I can't listen to it. This is the only album on this list that I cannot listen to. All the rest I love listening to, but this one's just, oh god. Alright, next up we got Family Dinner Volume 1. I mean, compared to M. Kenny, it's great, but compared to all the rest of these, this kind of leaves a lot to be desired. There's a lot of tracks that I'd skip on here. That being said, there are some great songs. Something, obviously, is amazing. I like Gone Under a lot, just personally. But again, there's a lot of tracks that don't really, I don't know, they don't really flow. Well, not that they don't flow, they just, I don't like them much. Don't have a lot of good reasons for that, but it's just how it is. We're gonna shoot back up to S tier with We Like It Here. I'm gonna put it behind Ground Up just because they're very comparable, honestly. All of these S tier albums that I'm gonna put in S tier could be at the top. I'm gonna put it behind just because We Like It Here tends to be overrated quite often. And it is their by far their most popular album, obviously, but yeah. I would also say it's pretty much the album is the Larnell album. It's not. I think the Ground Up really is a full band effort, whereas We Like It Here, everyone contributes, and then there's just Larnell going fucking insane in a good way, obviously. But yeah, it's still an S tier album. Not saying anything negative about it at all. But I think Ground Up just edges it past a little bit. And then rounding out S tier, we got Silva. I'm gonna put it just ahead of We Like It Here because Silva, I find out of all of these albums, by far has the best writing. Yeah. Again, there isn't a track on this album that I would skip at all, even though there's the clearing is like 20 minutes long or something. Absolutely amazing, start to finish. Yeah, I'd say my favorite track is probably. Well, I guess you don't really have a favorite track on this album. You have a favorite part of a song, I guess. The end of the clearing is obviously amazing. There's that part where the Rhodes and the organ duels in Flight. That's, yeah, top 10, you know, Snarky Puppy moments, I guess, on a recorded album. Yeah, next up we have Family Dinner Volume 2. I'm gonna put this in C tier. It is better than Family Dinner Volume 1 for sure, but there's still a couple tracks that I'd skip. I don't know, I kind of have you may notice I have a bit of a bias against vocals here in C, D, F tier. But yeah, Sing to the Moon, absolutely love it. I Asked is really creative. I don't know how much of that is Snarky Puppy and how much of that is, you know, based on Becca Stevens and stuff. And then I Remember is obviously really great too. But I'm gonna put it in C tier. There are a couple tracks that I definitely skip pretty much every time I listen to this. But it's still really, really good album. Alrighty, next up we got Culture Vulture. Putting this in A tier for sure. It is, I don't know, so I used to not like Culture Vulture so much, but after listening to it more and more, it's really just kind of, compared to all their other albums, Culture Vulture is very dark somehow. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's very dark, especially like Beatbox and Gemini feel very like out of place somewhat in their overall discography. But every track is super, super clean, super, super well written, and the studio recording, I feel like they definitely owned it on Culture Vulture. More so than Immigrants. Well, more so than Immigrants? I would say more so than Immigrants, honestly. Yeah, well, Immigrants is next, so I guess I'll just move on to that. Yeah, before I finish though, like Grown Folks, absolutely amazing. Taroba is really good. So yeah, I would put Culture Vulture in mid-A tier. And Immigrants, I'm just gonna put right behind it. I think Immigrants definitely has some amazing tracks. I mean, you've got, yeah, Chonks, Bigly Strict. Coven is probably one of my favorite songs of all time that Snarky Puppy's written. You know what? No, I think this belongs here. Yeah, Immigrants definitely should be mid-A tier, past Culture Vulture. I think some of the songs on Culture Vulture are a little bit much. I forget the name, maybe Palermo or Cemente, one of those two is just kind of awkward, but yeah, Immigrants really definitely doesn't have any bad songs that I would consider skipping. The writing is amazing. Studio recordings definitely work for this album. Next up we got Live at the Royal Albert Hall. I don't know, I don't really want to rate this one just because it's kind of out of place, but I'm gonna put it at the top of B tier. It's basically just Immigrants but live. And then there's Alma, like, let me double check if that's actually true. Oh, and Intelligent Design, yeah. And there's Sleeper and Chauffeur, but it's pretty good. It's basically just what you can find on YouTube if you're searching, and you have better audio quality. So it gives you an interesting kind of perspective on their songs if you haven't seen a live performance of theirs, but it's nothing crazy. And then finishing off the list, I'm going to put Empire Central here in top C tier. By far, Cleroy is my favorite song off of this album. And I think the whole first half of the album is absolutely amazing. But it kind of just goes on and goes on and goes on. And the writing in the second half of the album is kind of uncreative. In my opinion, like Honiara, like what is that? Mean Green, yeah, but yeah, Cleroy, East Bay, I feel like is underrated. It's weird, but I like it. I don't know. So yeah, that's my tier list here. Yeah. Looking at it, seems pretty good. The top of S tier here is really it's interchangeable pretty much. It depends what you prioritize. Yeah, What About Me obviously is legendary. Probably my favorite song of theirs. I think the songs that stand out. Oh, and here's the other thing. Culture Vulture doesn't include Shark Tank. And Shark Tank is probably, yeah, I would actually put Shark Tank as my favorite Snarky Puppy song of all time. And it's not on the album. I don't know why, but Mark Lettieri just goes absolutely insane on Shark Tank. And I don't know why it's not there, because then this thing would probably be here, but it's not. It's here. So yeah, those are my closing remarks. Thank you for watching. Check out my my new album that I dropped a couple months or weeks ago, I don't remember. It's called Living in a Society. But yeah, thanks for watching.